Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. My name's John Bachtler, and I'm a co-director of the European Policy Research Centre, based at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow and at Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands. And welcome to everyone to this fourth coffee break workshop under the Net Zero Industrial Cluster Exchange. Nice project and nice network. This is NICE is a knowledge sharing platform focusing on how regional and local development strategies can effectively support the transformation of regions and cities towards decarbonization and net zero. The NICE project was set up just over 2 years ago with support from Michelin and from Scottish Government to build relationships with other projects in different parts of Europe that are seeking to manage the place-based responses to net zero and the industrial transition. Well, we're delighted to be able to welcome you all to this workshop today and hopefully to future workshops also. Today, we're very pleased to welcome Alexander Law, who will present From Plant Closure to Opportunity, examining Michelin's approach to regional regeneration. And this workshop delves into Michelin's approach to low carbon regional regeneration following plant closures. The presentation will last about 20 minutes or so, and then we'll follow that up with a discussion. There'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions or make comments. As always, online, if you'd like to make an intervention, please use the raise hand function, or feel free to use the chat function. Failing that, just physically put your hand up and we'll give you the floor. Before I introduce our speaker, I just want to remind you that the meeting is being recorded, which means that you or your colleagues will have the opportunity to follow the meeting at a later stage. And the recording will be made available on EPRC's YouTube channel and our NICE website. And we'll also share you the link by email. Please feel free to use Twitter or X to share your thoughts on the webinar with the hashtag that you can see at the bottom of the screen, hashtag NiceNetCBW. Well, let me present then our speaker today. Alexander Law is head of public affairs for Michelin in France, and he also leads the Michelin development team. He contributed to the establishment of a joint venture between Michelin Dundee City Council and Scottish Enterprise, which led to the creation of the Michelin Scotland Innovation Park. Prior to this, Alexander was public affairs coordinator for the Moving On Sustainable Mobility Summit in Montreal, Canada, and he managed Michelin's partnership with the French government ahead of COP21. Before joining Michelin, he was chief economist at France's leading market report provider and subsequently head of economic affairs and innovation for the French Food and Beverage Trade Association. And he has degrees in political science and applied economics. So without further ado, let me give the floor to yourself, Alexander.
Well, thank you very, very much, John, and good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar. So maybe before setting off a slideshow, which I promise will be very, very slide light, a few words on Michelin. So I think it's pretty much a household name, but Michelin is one of the world's leading tyre manufacturer. We're headquartered in central France, in Clermont-Ferrand, and that's very, very important insofar as we're not based out of Paris like 39 of the other top 40 French companies. So that has probably given us, over the past 130 years, a willingness to work closely with the communities where we are established. And as a global manufacturer, we have an international presence in pretty much every country in the world where it is possible to have economic relations. And when you have a substantial amount of industrial facilities, so we have 70 odd just for tyres alone, and that is without counting other operations. Well, from time to time, because markets shift, because technologies change, we have to close some facilities while we're opening others elsewhere. That's the life of an industrial corporation. However, and this is what I'm going to present today, at Michelin, we believe that there are ways of ensuring that closing a facility which employs 500, 1,000, 1,500 people is not a tragedy for the community, but can actually be an opportunity. So I'm going to start off, if I can master the technology, with just a very, very quick video, which is going to present the first couple of years of a project that we have undertaken in Dundee, where we had a plant which manufactured passenger car tyres, small passenger car tyres, and but unfortunately the market dynamics shifted. We were no longer able to sell those tyres, so we made the difficult decision to close that plant, and in a very tight-knit community where Michelin was the main employer. So I'm going to start off with that video, and then I'll share, I think I have 4 slides, and then after that I will be able to maybe all share experiences on how we go about this. So I'm just going to press the button, share my screen, and share, and hopefully and normally if someone could just tell me whether they can see the slides.
Yes, all good.
Thank you very much. And now I'm going to start off with just a 2-minute video before starting the presentation per se.
They'd all heard the rumours. Now it's confirmed. Michelin will pull out of Dundee within 2 years. 845 jobs here will be lost.
The decision was delivered to the plant's 850 workers this morning. It's being described as a body blow to the city.
That was a real shock for us. It was a shock not just because we knew the economic impact for the area, but we knew the human impact it would have in Dundee. So the priority for me and for Michelin, and first and foremost, is our employees. The programme that we've built with the team is all about developing resilience within the team. So how do we support our people to survive through this traumatic phase of their career?
I've never been so proud of a company, the way they've conducted themselves from the 5th and the 6th of November. I can say that with a clear conscience. A lot of companies will come and close the gates. Our redundancy package is second to none. We've got a minimum of 5 years for every single person. We're trying to support people, because money is okay, but money could disappear if you don't have another job. And I am proud to work for Michelin.
I'm a great example of that. I was part of the internal development programme, and I'd always had an aspiration to work in HR. Since the closure announcement, I have completed my CIPD, so I now have an HR qualification.
What we wanted to do was reset. We believed in their vision, they believed in our vision, and with the assets and the talent and the investment we could bring, we really believed that we could do something very special here.
A really unique collaboration, bringing all of those various attributes, those skills and expertise together, but also the resources of all those partners together.
We have a great team who's working on it full time to deliver a world-leading innovation park in sustainable mobility and low-carbon energy in Dundee. We're speaking to 25 companies about locating at the park, as well as several academic institutions about collaborations with MSIP. We've got a significant number of jobs in the pipeline. We are currently looking at potentially creating 700 jobs over the next 3 to 5 years.
Je suis extrêmement heureux d'être venu et de voir comment nos équipes se mobilisent et font d'une décision difficile un projet très positif.
Well, Dundee is a city that is a UNESCO City of Design. It's a city in transition. It's moved and changed, and it has resilient people. And I think the workforce in Michelin are a resilient people. They can help reinvent Dundee for the present and, most importantly, for the future, which means the children of the workforce here in Michelin will be employed in those new industries that will be powering the world sustainably in many years to come.
Right, so the technique means that I have to stop sharing my screen before I share it again so that you can actually hear my voice, even though I'm not sure that's always an advantage. But I think that you've had a snapshot in the video. So apologies, the video was actually shot pretty much just prior and during COVID. So hence some slight changes, but at least, and so that means that it's now 3 years old, so I'll be able to tell you the story, but the basics were all there in that video. I'll talk it through with you with a couple of slides. So here we go. And normally, if I go here,
they'd all.
So basically, the story of MSIP, that is the Michelin Scotland Innovation Park. That's the name that we've given to our joint venture in Dundee, and which has inspired what we've done going forward. So I'll tell you a bit about the story of MSIP before we get to the basics and of why we did what we did and how we did it, because I think that's extremely important. And then I look very much forward to sharing the experience around the virtual table. So as I mentioned, in November 2018, we had to announce the closure of our site in Dundee due to a shift in the market, not at all due to the capabilities of our colleagues, but we knew that it would be an absolute hammer blow to the community. And I think that's illustrated by the video and by what you can hear on the news programs right at the beginning. We had 846 employees in that particular site. We were by far the biggest employer in Dundee, with probably the highest level of wages, and we were the fourth largest manufacturing outfit in the whole of Scotland. So we knew that this would be very, very hard to deal with, and I think we were all determined, sure that that blow had to be cushioned. What was important was immediately to cushion the blow for our colleagues. Because let us not forget, we had 846 co-workers on that site. They all had families, and you'd have father and daughter, mother and son who could be working at that plant. And the loss of a job for one person could have ramifications for 3, 4, 5 people. So our priority was to ensure that everybody was able to find a solution quickly. And that could be in other companies, it could be within Michelin, in other operations within the United Kingdom, in Europe, or sometimes in North America, or helping people find jobs outside of Michelin. Where we were actually delighted and pleasantly surprised is that very quickly 100% of our colleagues found a positive solution through our My Future programme, where we supported everyone throughout their journey. And the way we operated was when you decide to close an industrial operation, you have a ramp down planned, and that can be either immediate or it can be over 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months. Well, we decided to operate according to a social ramp down. That is, we would set our production schedule according to the workforce that we had left, because there was no way that we wanted to shut the door on someone who wanted to leave and would find alternative employment elsewhere. Also, at that very, very same time, and this I think is to the great credit of Scottish Government and Team Scotland as a whole, is that they were really extremely proactive in trying to find the solutions, and they were proactive pragmatically insofar as, even though it was Michelin's decision and Michelin's decision alone to close that plant, they did not blame the group for what was happening. They understood the rationale behind it and determined to work with us. So there was an action group, the MDAG, which was set up almost immediately with the, at the time, Cabinet Secretary Derek Mackay was the leader of the Dundee City Council, John Alexander. So Scottish Government was there, Scottish Enterprise, the Economic Development Agency for Scotland was there, the council, Michelin, but also Unite, the union. Everybody sat around the table and said, okay, what can we do to find a solution? And the people on the ground at Michelin, including myself, we were given the support and the backing of the executive committee of the group to try to use the means and the resources that we needed to try and find a future, not only for our colleagues, but also for the location, the industrial site. And this led to the creation of a joint venture only 6 months later. So you can imagine public-private partnership established in 6 months. There's something of a record there, and a company was created, Michelin Scotland Innovation Park Limited, and that was set up with 3 shareholders who've got equal shareholding, and that is Scottish Enterprise for Scottish Government, the City of Dundee, and the Michelin Group. And that was set up ahead of the closure of the tyre facility in June 2020. And those colleagues who were the last on site were able to leave with their heads held high. Once Michelin had closed its operations, we had to, of course, depollute, remove the machinery and the like, and we were able to hand over the total site, which is a huge site. You can put very many football grounds in the 32 hectares of land and building of the location, and that handover of the site was part of an over £30 million package that Michelin put in for the repurposing, and Team Scotland vowed to put in an additional £30 million to ensure a future for the site. And since that time, MSIP has been operating, Michelin Scotland Innovation Park has been operating in our Dundee facility. And basically, Michelin Scotland Innovation Park was designed to host not only manufacturing companies, but also research, the skills academy, startups, which operate in the field of low carbon energy and sustainable mobility. And why those 2 fields? It's basically because both Team Scotland and Michelin realised that those 2 fields were integral to our DNA and to how we wanted to work going forward. So basically, we looked after our people, but we also looked after the location, trying to ensure that we could bring jobs back to back to the site, back to those 32 hectares in forward-looking industries, and that was very, very important, and all that in a public-private partnership. Why did we do that? I think is pretty much the question, because lots of companies, and extremely respectable, extremely responsible companies with a very strong ethos, when they close manufacturing plants, they look after their people very well, but they just seek to find a purchaser for the land and building, which is a very good thing to do. But we decided that we probably wanted to help a bit more by working with all the different stakeholders, because all these stakeholders we've been working with not for years but for decades. We'd been in Dundee since 1972, so it's been since 50 years we had been there, and our employees, their families, our people, as we call them, lots of them were Dundonians through and through. And the fact that we were closing that facility, that was a hammer blow to our people. It was also difficult for those organisations which our people, our employees, their families interacted with on a day-to-day business. It could be charities, it could be associations, it could be your parish, whatever. So we knew that that news that we delivered was bad. It was sad, it was upsetting, and we needed to work for the community. And let's face it, we'd also worked over 50 years with the United Kingdom, with London, with Westminster. We'd also worked with Edinburgh. We'd also worked with Dundee. And when I say working, there'd been support, there'd been grants, there's been subsidies. In turn, of course, we've paid taxes. But all in all, we probably owed a debt, at the very least, of gratitude to all these people. So be it decision makers, be it the community, be it our colleagues. So we knew who we had to work with, who we had to interact with going forward to ensure a positive outcome. And to do that, to ensure that we had a positive outcome, we had to ensure that we got our ducks in a row and our priorities right. I think that's what I started off with on my first slide of the deck, was ensuring that the social package that we put out there is the best possible package for our people. Because when somebody loses a job, a pretty well-paid job, in a community, in an environment where there aren't that many of those on offer, we want to take the financial uncertainty off the table. We want people to not go to bed at night saying, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to get my kids through university? So we try and put together a very decent package. But it's not just about signing a check, because that's probably the easiest thing a big multinational company can do, is sign the check. We also had individual coaching and assistance for every one of our 846 employees, to ensure that once they'd received their financial package, they had financial guidance on how to manage that money, that there were lots of workshops for writing a CV, writing a cover letter, identifying potential employers, and ensuring that the skill set of those people and of our colleagues was up to date and was able to correspond to the requirements of companies operating in the area. Once we've done that, once we've taken care of our people, we want to take care of the economic fabric of the location where we are, and that's where we use a company or a tool which we call Michelin Development. So I'm head of Michelin development at the French level, but we also coordinate at the worldwide level, and that's basically support. We operate through subsidies and loans to ensure job creation in companies operating around our manufacturing sites. And how do we do that? Basically through by identifying those companies which say have a project to create 5, 10, 15 jobs, and we will support them, for instance, through unsecured loans at very competitive rates. So just to give you an example, in France, where we operate quite substantially, we offer loans at 1.25%, 1.25% currently per annum, which is very, very competitive in this environment. So that's something, Michelin development, that we've been doing over the past 30 odd years. So that's nothing new. What is new, and what we started with Dundee, was to say, right, okay, we can look after our people, we can ensure that jobs are created and hopefully for our people, but what do we do about that particular physical place, that physical location? And that's where we came up with this idea of wanting to assist in helping on the repurposing of the site to give it a new lease of life, and with two aims. The first aim is to recreate jobs, and hopefully as many as those that will shed. And the second aim, the second priority, is to give it a future. So not looking at forward-looking activities. And at that, Michelin, we can't make that up. We don't know what the future holds. But what we do know is that the local community, the local environment, the local economy, they know better than we do. So we listen to what they want, and we try and work hand in hand with public and private partners. So that being said, you know, the question that you're probably asking at this stage is, why do all of that? Why don't you just sell? And I think there are three answers to all of that. The first one is that we don't set up shop in an area, in a country, in a region, in a city. We don't set up shop for 10 years. We've been there generally between 100 and 50 years or something like that. And we've taken a lot from those communities. They've given a lot to us. And the right thing is to give back, at least try and give back some of what we've been given. It's the right thing to do. It's very, very simple when it's stated like that. And that's something that is drilled into us by our executive committee, by our CEO, who very strongly believes that we have to do what is right. Second reason, we're often a big fish in a small pond. We're generally the main employer of any location where we are. And if we were just to leave, shut up shop, this would cause unthinkable damage. It would cause unthinkable damage to the local economy. It would cause unthinkable damage to the group. And we've spent over 130 years trying to build our reputation as a responsible company, as a responsible employer. And we just can't do that. And that's our that's my third bullet point. It's not just about CSR, but if we talk the talk, we have to walk the walk. And there is a strong belief that we do, that responsibility has to be taken seriously. And once we've said that, we say we've got to do something. How do we set about it? And the way we set about it is that we realize that there is no one size fits all approach. The solutions have to be bespoke for each location. What does that mean? That means that we have to engage with policymakers, economic developers, other companies. And that is what you see, what we did in Scotland. Unfortunately, several months after the announcement of their closure in Scotland, we had to announce two closures. One in Bamberg, so that's northern Bavaria in Germany, and one in La Roche-sur-Yon, which is in western France. Basically, it was pretty much the same reasons why we had to close the factory. The Bamberg factory in Germany was the carbon copy of the Dundee factory, so there was no longer a market. And in La Roche-sur-Yon, it was a truck tire facility where we used to rely on exports to top up our manufacturing, but in the economic and geopolitical climate, it's become very, very hard to export mass market products from a country such as France. And we had the template of what we did in Dundee, but we worked very, very, very closely with both the Bavarian authorities, the Landkreis, so that's pretty much the constituency around Bamberg, to say, what exactly is it that you need? And they said, well, listen, we love the idea of what you're doing in Scotland, but we'd like to work a bit more on artificial intelligence, KI as they call it. We'd love to work on hydrogen, and that's something that we would like to do. We'd like to bring in some professors to ensure that we've got technical knowledge which can be disseminated in the community. And we've put all that in place in what is a joint venture, a three-partner joint venture with the constituency of Bamberg and the city and the town of Hallstatt, which is located in the Bamberg area. And we've established a corporation called the Cleantech Innovation Park. And yet again, even though it's bespoke for Bamberg, the aim remains the same: recreate jobs. It's a substantial amount of jobs on the location where we were operating, and to ensure that they were forward looking. And we had exactly the same approach in La Roche-sur-Yon, which is, we want to do something, but we're going to listen to you. And there it was really clean mobility, which was the focus in particular of the council of La Roche-sur-Yon. So yet again, we've set up a joint venture with three partners: Michelin, a national investment bank called the Banque des Territoires, and the Economic Development Agency of the city of La Roche-sur-Yon. And to be able to do all of this, we haven't just, decided, put together three people in a project team. We're actually building on a heritage of over 30 years. So that's Michelin Development, which I've already expanded on, and that's our in-house economic development agency, which can give three forms of assistance. I've already talked about these. These are loans, direct loans. These are subsidies for job creation, and these can be technical assistance. For instance, if a company is struggling with its supply chain or things like that, we can send in an expert which will help. And we've set this up in France, in Spain, in Italy, the UK, Canada, the States, also Germany. And since 1990, we have assisted in generating over 40,000 jobs around the world, of which, of course, 30,000 in France, and at a cost of close to 100 million euros, which is not philanthropy. This is not money. And I think I'd like to leave you at that, because I've already spoken for too long. Our approach to regional regeneration is, this is not philanthropy, this is not charity, this is actually makes good business sense, because if we operate well for decades and decades and then we close, we want to leave a legacy. Why? Because we owe it to the region, we owe it to Michelin, and for what it means and what it represents. And that means that the day that we want to set up shop somewhere, that we want to establish an operation, well, those communities, those local authorities, they'll say, yes, we actually do want to work with Michelin. We do want to make their life easier, because we know that it's not going to be a one-way relationship. And doing that, it makes social sense, it makes economic sense, and it has to make environmental sense. Hence why the common strand throughout all of these projects is that we will not do something which does not also have a positive impact on our collective ambition towards net zero. And that's why we've been very happy to be able to work together with the University of Strathclyde, with John Batchelor in particular and his team on this net zero cluster industrial exchange, because I think industrial cluster exchange, because I think it makes good sense that Michelin is able to share what it's done, but also that we're able to learn from all those around the virtual coffee table. So that's why I'd be very, very happy to leave at least 20 minutes for a discussion if you're so willing. So I'm going to stop my presentation there. I'm going to stop the screen sharing, and then I'll leave the virtual floor to John. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alexander. That's a really interesting description of the journey in managing plant closure, particularly with respect to MSIP, but also the wider context of Michelin's approach to this. So we do have just about 20 minutes. If anybody's got any questions, please do chip in with comments, thoughts, questions. Perhaps I could start, Alexander. The principles that underlie Michelin's approach here, the damage that it would do, the legacy, the long-term commitments that you've had to the community. And you sort of described it as if it was self-evident, and which of course it isn't in the industrial world. There are many companies that have partnerships to do good with charities and so on, that want to put something back into the community. But when it comes to plant closure, it's not that common to find businesses that have the extent of commitments that Michelin has done. And I just wonder where that philosophy comes from. Because you talked about the perspective that you get from being in Clermont-Ferrand, and when your CEO was over for COP26, he made that point very, very clearly. But does it go back to the philosophy of the Michelin family founders, or how does it come about? Is it possible to say where the philosophy originates?
It is very, very possible. Thank you for the question. It's actually very possible to say where it comes from. Michelin was founded in 1889 in Clermont-Ferrand, and its first factory is in the location of our current headquarters. So we're a provincial tire manufacturer. It's just happened to grow and grow and grow and balloon. But there have always been very, very close ties to the city of Clermont-Ferrand, and we know the impact that we're going to have on a community, and we've replicated that elsewhere. One of the particularities of Michelin is that we very seldom set up in a big location. Our headquarters in the United Kingdom, for instance, or in Stoke-on-Trent. Our headquarters in Canada or in Nova Scotia. They're not all huge industrial hubs. And I'm not going to go back into the history of France and the French economy, but there were lots of big companies from that area where they had this sort of paternalistic capitalism. And Michelin is one of those examples. And basically, there's some sort of idea that we're beyond just there to generate profit. And if you recall Milton Friedman saying that the only social responsibility of a corporation was to generate profit, Michelin does actually not completely follow that recommendation. What it does follow, and what is drummed into every single Michelin employee who joins the company, is a quote by François Michelin, who passed away in 2014, but he was for 40 odd years the head of Michelin. And he had a saying which was, "What is good for society has to become good for Michelin and not the other way round." And we are told that all the time. That is drummed into us. If it's good for society at large, it will be good for the company. And I think that's proven to be the case because we've been around for 130 years and we're working to ensure that we're there for another 100 years.
Great. Thanks very much, Alexander. David Brew, you've put your video on. Would you like to come in on any of the issues?
You've actually stolen my thunder, John, because I was going to ask what, to explore the question a little further as to the whys and wherefores. I mean, was there a detailed business case put forward as to what the costs would be to Michelin internally? Did the board get a paper that said this is what it's going to cost us, but it's worth it for our reputation? Or was there that sort of French style of, if I can put it this way, ethical approach that said, we've got to do this. It really doesn't matter. This is the way we're going to do it. It would be interesting if you can lift the veil on any of the internal corporate decision-making processes that enabled you to undertake what appears to be a very, very positive story that will have cost, in terms of sort of actual cash, that will have cost Michelin money to implement, that it didn't need to spend in order to achieve the outcomes that you were looking for?
Well, thank you for the question. I'd like to say that we made it up as we went along, because that's almost the way it is. It's because we had traction immediately with Scottish authorities, and 5 days. So now it's, old news, so I'll be able to say exactly what happened. 5 days before we made the announcement, we went to see the Cabinet Secretary, Derek Mackay, at the time in his offices in Edinburgh, and said, listen, we've got bad news. We're going to have to close our Dundee site. And his reaction was, I'd like to meet your CEO. I want to try and fight for Dundee. And we actually organised in a Sunday in Paris airport in a secluded room. We had a meeting with members of our executive committee and members of Scottish Government, Scottish Development Agency, Economic Development Agency, Scottish Enterprise, and came to the conclusion. The ask of Derek Mackay was, okay, I understand, I've seen the figures. You can't, it doesn't make sense for you to continue operating. But is there any way that you'd consider working with us going forward? Because we actually respect you, Michelin. And Frank, we'd never been talked to that way, and respected in the rationale behind what we were doing. And the question, is there a way? And I came back with that request. I was told, listen, we want to find a way to do something different. And we had a budget, and I worked with that. We worked within that budget, and we were able to carve out £30 million at the time from a budget to put to that project. And that was because we figured we need £30 million on our side to make this work. And Team Scotland said, we'll put in just as much. And it was green lighted, but we weren't anticipating it before, and we didn't think about the return on investment. We just thought that's the right thing to do because they're asking, and it makes a lot of sense. And if we can recreate that job, it's going to become a flagship project, which it has. I'm not going to lie to you either. When we do consider restructuring projects, and we've unfortunately had to announce closure of several plants at end of 2023, we then built in a budget towards that sort of project. And so, for instance, we announced the closure of one of our historic plants in Karlsruhe, so in Baden-Württemberg in Germany, and we know how much we can put towards that, and we're already working with the council, etc., with the same aim. So we're never going to get a return on investment, but financial return on investment, but at least in terms of our reputation, it makes a huge difference. Because to betray anything, I was speaking today to the leader of the Dundee City Council, and he said, Michelin, you went above and beyond our expectation. For us, that's great. And I'm in Paris at this point in time, and I was in a hotel last night. I sleep at a hotel in Paris, and who do I bump into but the mayor of the city of La Roche-sur-Yon? And we were able to share a pint, discuss what we'd done, and very happy at that, at the outcome. And all that means to say that the day that we've got projects in Scotland, in Germany, in Western France, we're sure that we'll be pretty sure that we'll be welcomed with open arms. So that's our return on investment. But we can play the long game because we've been around for 100 years. And so we're not focused on the next quarter. I think that gives us a lot of leeway to experiment things that maybe other companies can't.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Did you want to follow up on anything there, David? No? Are you okay?
No, I'm fine. I think that answers my questions, and I look forward to the continued development of the park in Dundee, where I now chair the board at Abertay University.
Ah, fantastic.
Okay, thanks very much, David. And Fabian Gal.
Yes, hello. Thanks a lot for this very interesting presentation and example of the plant closure. If I may follow up from the why and move on to the how, I've got maybe two questions. One would be, how did you take into account a difference between the new jobs that you're creating and the ones that have been lost due to the closure of the plant? I imagine that's not the same type of jobs. So how did you take that into account? And the second question would be, now that the plant is closed and the innovation park has been set up, what are your plans for the future? Are you planning to stay involved long term, or is that a thing we've done now? We've ensured the transition and now we can move on to something else, or are you planning to stay involved in a long-term perspective? Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you very much, because there are two key questions. The first one is the types of jobs and the quality of the jobs, and there are two aspects to that question. Are our people finding jobs which are as qualified and as well paid as those which were at Michelin? And there, what we do is we set up a compensation scheme to make up for the shortfall in income for the first 2 years. Okay, so that's something where that's a social package. That's part of what we do, is to ensure that people don't lose out. And our aim, by establishing new operation on the former location in forward-looking jobs, is to bring in high quality skilled jobs, and that's what we're looking at the moment. At MSIP, there are only 170 jobs, so we're short, but we still intend by 2028, which would be 10 years after the closure, we still intend to reach the target of roughly 800 jobs on site. Your second question regards the involvement of Michelin. Our job is to make tyres. It's not to run Innovation Park. So what we want to do is help set up these initiatives, ensure they're sustainable and that they're reaching their goals. And once we're convinced that it's sustainable, that it's not going to fail, that that job target will be reached, then it's only right and proper that we relinquish our shareholding to someone from the community. And so I'm not going to go into the details of how that can work. Suffice to say, we will not look to make any money out of the transfer of our ownership.
Okay, thanks very much, Fabian. Other questions, comments? Can I just maybe follow up, Alexander? You said in your presentation that your approach to La Roche-sur-Yon, Hallstatt, Karlsruhe, Trier, I think maybe the other one. These are all bespoke solutions because each place is different.
Yeah.
But Dundee was the pilot, if you like. And leaving aside the specificities of each location, are there some sort of general lessons that you've learned from the Dundee experience, good or bad or indifferent, that you that have informed your approach to other plant closures?
Yeah, I think we can go beyond Dundee, probably go to Dundee, La Roche-sur-Yon, Bamberg. They're all in the first wave. I think the main, if there's one lesson that we've learned beyond the easy, I think that, the idea that public-private partnerships are complicated. Yes, of course they're complicated, but so are marriages. So you just work at it. What we found is that as a big multinational company, we can sometimes be arrogant. We can be convinced that we're always right and we know best, doctor knows best. And that's not always the case. And sometimes at first when we were in Bamberg, when we were in La Roche-sur-Yon, we wanted to duplicate a bit too much what we'd done in Dundee. And it's not, actually, it's not going to work here. So we realized that we've got to listen a lot more than we probably did at first. And so that is our learning, is that it's the local community, local companies, local authorities know better than we do what is good for them.
Great. Thanks very much. I think I said when we had previous discussions that we're looking to write this up, but I think that there is a longitudinal study here to be done, because this is it's a really fascinating exercise. One that has very real implications, consequences for people.
Yeah, and it's our main focus, I think you understand, is the people, because Keynesian economics is all about multiplying effects, and the closure of a facility has a multiplying effect, and economic, social and emotional multiplier effect, and that's what we try to counteract with these programs.
Okay, I think we've got time for one more question. If anybody wants to come in. No. Okay. I jotted down about a dozen questions while you were speaking, so I'll take the chair's privilege to ask one more. Alexander, you're not in this, if I can use rather sort of crass phraseology, to make money. You're in it to help the transition and maximize the benefits from your long-standing relationship. But certainly the ones that I've seen in Bamberg and Dundee, there are some sort of leading edge technologies that are the subject of the innovation park developments. You as a company are also diversifying away from tires into a range of other sort of products and service areas. To what extent do you see that there would be some benefits from the kind of or some overlaps, if you like, in terms of your interests and the developments in these parks, or would that be sort of coincidental?
It would not be coincidental. It's to use a French phrase. They say c'est le Graal. It's the Grail. It's what you aim for. Is that when you set that up, yes, we can benefit from what is being developed on site, because we are not a charity. We are a company whose stock is greatly owned by investment funds, things like that. So we are held to the same financial responsibility as any other multinational company. And so if I want to give one example, for instance, there's going to be a hydrogen test bed in Bamberg, where we have significant interest in hydrogen. And one of our joint ventures is called Symbio, and they will be bringing their training academy to Bamberg. So we hope to be able to benefit from that. So yes, we do. It's not our main focus, but if we can, we're sure not going to try and say, no, that's not for us. It's for let the rest of the world benefit from it and not us. No, we're not going to do that. John, I think your mic is
sorry, yes. That takes us to the hour and the close of our seminar. This has been a really fascinating a fascinating presentation. Alexander, thank you very much for making time for this. I should say that we've mentioned the NICE project a couple of times. That formally came to an end in 2023, but it has had quite important leverage and spin-off effect. We have a number of projects that are building on the learning and the relationships with projects across Europe. And one of those is an Interreg Europe project involving partners from 8 countries that is looking, it's called Commit. That's looking at the low carbon transition of places and how those transitions can best be supported in terms of finance, innovation, skills, and knowledge. And this will run for 4 years. Some quite exciting developments, and we're looking forward also to continuing the relationship in different ways with Michelin in that journey. Well, we hope that you'll keep an eye on outcomes from this area of work, and that you'll join us for future workshops. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you very much, Alexander, and have a good rest of the afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.